Prayer for my audience. Dear God, Heavenly Father, or Spirit of Love, choose what resonates with you. I lift up every person reading these words in prayer. May they feel your peace, guidance, and abundant blessings in all they do. I am so thankful for each one of them, every comment, every word of encouragement, and every moment they spend here means so much to me. Please watch over them and keep them in your loving care, now and always. Amen. I'm so grateful for each of you who stops by to read my stories. Your presence here truly means a lot to me. When you comment and share your thoughts, you bring so much warmth and life to this space. Please let me know what resonates with you, inspires you, or even challenges you. I look forward to hearing your voices and growing together through our shared experiences. Your words matter more than you know. Thank you for being part of this journey. Let's begin with the story. Excuse me, what are you doing in here? Jasmine's voice cracked as she scrambled to pull her blouse over her trembling shoulders. Her reflection in the mirror, wide-eyed and vulnerable, met the towering figure frozen in the doorway. Elliot's T.T. James, the billionaire hotel mogul, stood like a ghost who had wandered into the wrong life. His face, already pale from a stressful day, flushed with a mixture of guilt and confusion. He was in the wrong room. His private suite was supposed to be on the next floor. Yet here he was, staring at a woman who clearly didn't belong in the luxury world he lived in, and in a moment of her deepest vulnerability. "I'm so sorry," he stammered, stepping back, but his legs felt like they'd been buried in cement. Jasmine narrowed her eyes, her chest rising and falling as the sting of intrusion coursed through her. "You think you can just barge in because you own this place?" she snapped, her voice firm despite her racing heart. Elliot blinked, his brain struggling to process the fiery accusation. He wasn't the kind of man who barged into rooms. He wasn't the kind of man who made mistakes, period. Yet, here he was, wrong room, wrong time, and apparently the wrong person to stumble upon. It was the worst way to meet someone, and yet Elliot couldn't tear his eyes away. Jasmine wasn't just anyone. She wasn't the housekeeper or the event staff he vaguely recognized from hotel functions. She was someone else entirely. Her chocolate brown skin gleamed under the low lighting of the vanity, and her dark, natural curls framed a face that held beauty in its purest, most unapologetic form. "Please," she hissed, her voice trembling with more than just anger. "Leave." Elliot finally snapped out of it, retreating with his hands raised as though surrendering. The door clicked shut behind him, and Jasmine exhaled sharply, pressing her palms against the counter. Her heart pounded in her chest, but it wasn't just from the shock. It was the way he looked at her, like she was a masterpiece he wasn't supposed to touch. Jasmine didn't think much of the incident after that. Rich men always seemed to think the world revolved around them, that every door was theirs to open. It was an embarrassing moment, sure, but it wasn't worth holding on to. She had bigger things to worry about, like her job. Working as a freelance makeup artist for one of the largest charity galas in the city was no small deal, especially for someone like her. Being a black woman in a high-profile, predominantly white industry often meant working twice as hard for half the recognition. Still, Jasmine was good. No, she was excellent, and tonight she intended to prove it. What she didn't expect was to see him again. Elliot stood at the top of the grand staircase during the gala, his presence commanding the room like a storm cloud over calm waters. His tailored navy suit hugged his frame perfectly, and his signature silver cufflinks gleamed under the chandelier lights. But his eyes, they were searching for her. Jasmine caught him staring from across the room as she worked on touching up one of the models. His gaze wasn't leering or uncomfortable. It was soft, curious, almost hesitant. She tried to brush it off, focusing on her work, but the weight of his presence was impossible to ignore. Elliot couldn't stop thinking about her. He had no business lingering on that moment in the hotel room, but something about Jasmine had shaken him to his core. She was so unapologetically herself, her strength radiating even in her most vulnerable state. He knew the world she lived in wasn't easy. He'd heard enough stories from his late mother, a proud black woman who had defied odds in her own right, to recognize the quiet battles people like Jasmine fought daily. He also knew that his presence, his privilege, and even his fascination with her could easily be misinterpreted. But he couldn't help it. "Mr. Steety, James, are you following me?" Jasmine asked, her tone sharp as she cornered him in the hallway outside the dressing room. Elliot's lips parted, but no sound came out. He hadn't planned to approach her. In fact, he wasn't even sure why he was in that hallway. All he knew was that when she walked past him earlier, her scent, a mix of lavender and something uniquely her, had pulled him like a magnet. "I just wanted to apologize," he said finally, his voice low and sincere, "for what happened earlier. It was completely inappropriate, and I hope you can forgive me." Jasmine studied him, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. She was used to insincere apologies from people who only said what they thought others wanted to hear. But this felt different. "You've apologized," she said coolly. "Now what?" Elliot blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what do you want from me? Men like you don't go out of their way to apologize to people like me unless they want something," she said bluntly. Her words hit him harder than he expected. "You think I'm here because I want something from you?" Jasmine tilted her head, her gaze piercing. "Am I wrong?" For a moment, Elliot said nothing. Then, he surprised even himself. "Yes, you are." The story unfolded slowly, with Elliot making deliberate efforts to bridge the gap between their worlds. It wasn't easy. Jasmine was guarded, and rightfully so. She had seen too many promises broken and too many opportunities snatched away by people who looked like him. But Elliot wasn't like the others. He didn't just offer her empty words or grand gestures. He listened. He learned. He used his privilege not as a weapon but as a tool to uplift, to open doors for those who had always been locked out. And as Jasmine began to see his heart raw, genuine, and full of a love she had never expected, her walls started to crumble. Their love story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated, filled with doubts and moments of tension. But it was also beautiful proof that even in a world rife with division and prejudice, love could still bloom in the unlikeliest of places. The suspense, of course, lay in the question Jasmine asked herself every night as she lay beside him. Could she trust it? Could she trust him? The answer didn't come in words but in actions consistent, unwavering, and true. One night, months after their initial meeting, Jasmine found herself at the edge of Elliot's penthouse balcony. The city stretched out below her, alive with shimmering lights and endless noise. She hugged her arms around herself, her mind swirling. "You're quiet tonight," Elliot said softly, stepping up beside her. He offered her a glass of wine, but she shook her head. "I'm just thinking," she admitted, staring into the night. "About?" "Here on my channel, we celebrate the power of love through stories that will touch your heart, inspire your soul, and remind you of its magic. If you believe in love, if you've ever been moved by its power, then join our community by click the like button and subscribing. Together, let's share the beauty of love with the world. Your support means everything, so don't forget to like and subscribe to stay connected and inspired. Love is better when we share it." Jasmine hesitated, her fingers gripping the cool steel of the railing. "About us. About whether this," she waved her hand between them, "can really work. You come from a world I've only seen from the outside. A world that looks at someone like me and sees nothing but a problem. How do I fit into that?" Elliot's expression softened, and he set the glass down on the ledge. "You don't have to fit into anything, Jasmine," he said. "I'm not asking you to change who you are. I fell in love with you because of who you are." Her heart skipped a beat, but she didn't let it show. "And what happens when your board members or investors or whoever else start whispering about how your image doesn't match your reality?" Elliot chuckled, though there was no humor in it. "Let them whisper. They don't get to dictate my life. They never have." Jasmine turned to face him fully, searching his eyes for any sign of doubt or hesitation. "You say that now. But when the headlines come, when people start questioning you, will you still stand by me?" He stepped closer, his hands gently cradling hers. "Yes," he said firmly, "because I don't care about headlines. I care about you, about us." She wanted to believe him. She did believe him, but years of being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated made it hard to shake her doubts entirely. The first test came sooner than either of them expected. A photo of them together, taken by a sneaky paparazzo, was splashed across every gossip site the next day. The headlines were as cruel as Jasmine feared. Billionaire Elliot Steety. James steps out with mystery woman, a gold digger, or true love. Jasmine's phone blew up with messages, some supportive but most filled with venom. "I told you this would happen," she said, tossing her phone onto the coffee table as Elliot read through one of the articles. "And I told you I don't care," he replied calmly, setting the tablet down and crossing the room to her. "Well, I care," she snapped, her voice breaking. "I care because I'm the one being dragged through the mud. I'm the one they're calling names, questioning my worth. Do you know what that feels like?" Elliot reached for her, but she pulled away, pacing the room with her arms wrapped around herself. "I've worked so hard to build a life I'm proud of, to prove I'm more than what people see when they look at me. And now, all of that is being reduced to some billionaire's charity case." He watched her, his heart aching at the pain in her voice. "You're not a charity case, Jasmine," he said softly, "and anyone who says otherwise doesn't know you like I do." "Maybe they don't," she muttered, her eyes glistening. "But their voices are loud, Elliot, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep drowning them out." Over the weeks that followed, Elliot did everything he could to prove his commitment not just to Jasmine, but to the values she held dear. He used his platform to spotlight diverse voices, partnering with Black-owned businesses and funding programs that supported underprivileged communities. It wasn't enough to say he loved her. He wanted the world to see it through his actions. But Jasmine still hesitated. One evening, as they sat in his living room watching a documentary about systemic racism, she turned to him abruptly. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. Elliot paused the film, turning to her with a frown. "What do you mean? All these projects, all these speeches, are you doing it for me? Or because you actually care?" He reached out, taking her hand in his. "I care because you showed me what I've been blind to my whole life," he said. "You opened my eyes, Jasmine, and now that I see, I can't unsee. But more than that, I'm doing it because I love you. And I want to build a world where we can exist, where you can exist without having to fight for your place in it." Her throat tightened, and she had to blink back tears. "You really mean that?" Every word, he whispered. The real turning point came at an exclusive gala months later, one attended by some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world. Elliot brought Jasmine as his date, despite the murmurs and raised eyebrows from those who thought she didn't belong. Halfway through the evening, as they stood together under the glittering lights, one of Elliot's oldest business partners approached them. The man, a stiff, silver-haired tycoon, offered a condescending smile as he turned to Jasmine. "So, what is it you do?" he asked, his tone dripping with thinly veiled disdain. Jasmine straightened, her chin held high. "I'm a makeup artist," she said confidently. "And a damn good one." The man raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Interesting. And how exactly did you meet Elliot?" Before Jasmine could respond, Elliot stepped in, his voice firm and unwavering. "We met because I walked into the wrong room and found the right person," he said. The man blinked, startled. But Elliot didn't stop there. "She's not here to impress you or justify herself," he continued. "She's here because she's the most remarkable person I've ever met. And I'm lucky she said yes to me." Jasmine's breath caught, her eyes welling with tears as Elliot turned to her, his gaze filled with nothing but love and pride. That night, as they danced under the stars, Jasmine realized something. She didn't need to question his love anymore. He wasn't just standing beside her, he was standing with her, every step of the way. Jasmine rested her head on Elliot's shoulder as they swayed to the music, her mind at peace for the first time in months. The weight of the judgment, the whispers, and the fear of the unknown hadn't vanished entirely, but they no longer felt unbearable. She knew the world wouldn't change overnight. People would still talk, assumptions would still be made, and there would always be moments when she questioned whether she truly belonged in Elliot's life. But as she looked up into his eyes, she saw something: unshakable love, real, unconditional, and unwavering. "Penny, for your thoughts." Elliot asked softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Jasmine smiled faintly. I was just thinking about how lucky I am. He tilted his head, his expression both amused and serious. Lucky? Jasmine, I think you've got that backwards. I'm the lucky one. She shook her head, a small laugh escaping her lips. You don't understand. I spent so much of my life feeling invisible, like no matter how hard I worked or how much I accomplished, I'd never be enough. But then, you came along and her voice broke, and she swallowed hard. And what? He prompted gently. And you saw me, she finished, her voice barely above a whisper. Elliot stopped moving, his hand sliding to cup her face. I didn't just see you, Jasmine. I see you every day, every moment. And I love every part of you. Your strength, your passion, your fire, everything. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and she didn't bother wiping them away. You have no idea how much that means to me. He leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers. Then let me spend the rest of my life showing you. The challenges didn't end after that night. There were still awkward dinners with Elliot's board members, where Jasmine had to bite her tongue against thinly veiled microaggressions. There were still moments when strangers would approach her, asking prying questions or making backhanded comments about her luck in landing someone like Elliot. But there were also victories, small, steady wins that reminded her why she'd chosen to stay. Elliot made sure she never felt alone, standing up for her in rooms where her voice might not have been heard. And Jasmine, in turn, continued to carve out her own space in the world, refusing to let anyone define her by her relationship or the color of her skin. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of Elliot's penthouse, he handed her a thick envelope. What's this? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Open it, he said, his tone betraying a hint of nervousness. Jasmine pulled out a stack of papers, her eyes scanning the first page. Her jaw dropped as she realized what she was holding. Elliot, is this what I think it is? He nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. It's a grant. For you. To start your own beauty brand. She stared at him, stunned. You did this for me? No, he said firmly. You did this for you. I just gave you the resources to make it happen. Jasmine's hands trembled as she held the papers, her mind racing. She had always dreamed of creating a brand that celebrated diversity and inclusivity in the beauty industry, but she had never imagined it could actually happen. Why? She asked, her voice barely audible. Elliot took her hand, his gaze steady. Because the world deserves to see what I see in you. And because I believe in you, Jasmine. More than anything. The years that followed were a whirlwind. Jasmine's beauty brand, True Essence, quickly gained recognition for its commitment to celebrating all skin tones and redefining beauty standards. Elliot continued to support her from the sidelines, never overshadowing her achievements but always standing by her side. Together, they became a symbol of what love and determination could accomplish, even in the face of prejudice and doubt. One day, as they walked through the bustling streets of Harlem, hand in hand, Jasmine paused outside a mural. It was a vibrant painting of a black woman standing tall, her natural curls crowned with flowers, her face radiating confidence and strength. Beneath it, in bold letters, were the words, "You are enough." Jasmine stared at it, her heart swelling. What are you thinking? Elliot asked, squeezing her hand. She smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. That maybe I was wrong all those years ago, she said softly. Wrong about what? About whether or not I belonged in your world. Elliot turned to her, his eyes filled with nothing but love. Jasmine, you don't just belong in my world. You are my world. And in that moment, she believed him. Truly, completely, and without hesitation. Because love, she realized, wasn't about fitting into someone else's world. It was about building a new one together. Months turned into years, and Jasmine and Elliot's lives intertwined in ways neither of them could have imagined. Jasmine's beauty brand, True Essence, became a household name, celebrated not just for its high-quality products but for its unapologetic celebration of diversity. Her story of perseverance inspired countless women, especially Black women, to chase their dreams despite the odds stacked against them. Elliot, on the other hand, found himself transformed by Jasmine's influence. The man who once lived for profit and prestige now used his wealth and power to advocate for equity and social change. Together, they became a formidable team, a power couple whose love was rooted not in extravagance but in purpose. One crisp autumn evening, they sat in the backyard of their brownstone in Harlem, a place they had chosen together for its rich culture and history. Jasmine was curled up on the porch swing, sipping tea as Elliot flipped through a stack of letters. "Another batch of fan mail?" she teased, her eyes twinkling. "Yours, not mine," he replied, holding up an envelope. "This one's from a young girl in Atlanta. Listen to this." He cleared his throat and began reading aloud. "Dear Jasmine, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm 16, and I've always felt like I wasn't enough, too dark, too different, too invisible. But then I saw your story, and it made me believe that maybe I can be more than what people expect of me. Thank you for showing me that I don't have to apologize for who I am." Jasmine's throat tightened as Elliot continued. "I saved up my allowance to buy your foundation, and for the first time, I feel beautiful. I hope one day I can be as brave as you. Love, Tiana." Elliot looked up, his eyes soft. "That's what you do, Jasmine. That's the impact you have." Jasmine wiped away a tear, her voice shaky. "I used to be that girl, wondering if I'd ever be seen, if I'd ever matter." He reached for her hand, his grip warm and steady. "And now you're helping girls like her see that they already matter." She leaned against him, her heart full. "Sometimes I wonder how my life would have turned out if you hadn't walked into that room by mistake." Elliot chuckled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Biggest mistake of my life," he said playfully, then added more seriously. "And the best thing that's ever happened to me." The world continued to test their love. There were still critics, skeptics, and moments of doubt. But Jasmine and Elliot faced every challenge together, drawing strength from their shared purpose and unwavering belief in one another. One day, during an interview for a major magazine, Jasmine was asked a question that made her pause. "If you could go back and change anything about your journey, would you?" She thought for a moment, her gaze distant. "No," she said finally, "because every challenge, every moment of pain and doubt brought me to where I am now. It brought me to my purpose, to my passion, and to the man I love. I wouldn't trade that for anything." Years later, as Jasmine stood on the stage of a packed conference hall, delivering a keynote speech about empowerment and resilience, she caught sight of Elliot in the crowd. He was sitting in the front row, his eyes fixed on her with the same awe and admiration he'd had the first time he saw her. In that moment, she realized something profound. Their love wasn't just about the two of them. It was about the lives they touched, the barriers they broke, and the example they set for a world that desperately needed hope. When she finished her speech, the room erupted into applause, and Elliot was the first to rise to his feet. As she stepped off the stage, he met her halfway, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. Jasmine smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. "And I'm proud of us, because despite everything, the doubts, the whispers, the challenges, they had built something unbreakable. Together, they weren't just surviving, they were thriving, and they were doing it on their own terms." As Jasmine and Elliot continued to grow together, their love became a beacon for many who had doubted that two worlds so vastly different could coexist harmoniously. Yet their journey was far from over. One evening, they sat on their rooftop under a canopy of stars. The city hummed below, its distant noise a comforting backdrop to their quiet moment. "Jasmine," Elliot said, his voice carrying a weight she hadn't heard in a while. She looked up from her sketchpad. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about the future," he said, his fingers tracing idle patterns on the armrest of his chair. "Sounds serious," she teased lightly, closing her notebook. "It is," he admitted. "I want us to take the next step." Jasmine's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Elliot turned to her, his blue eyes searching hers. I want us to build a family." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this conversation, not yet. "A family?" she echoed. He nodded. I know we've talked about it before, but I want to make it real. I want us to have something that's ours, a legacy that reflects everything we've fought for and everything we believe in. Jasmine stared at him, her mind racing. She had always dreamed of having a family, but the idea terrified her. What kind of world would her children inherit? Would they face the same prejudices and challenges she had? Elliot, you know I love you, she began carefully. But bringing a child into this world, it's not just about love. It's about the world they'll grow up in, the world we're still trying to change. Elliot reached for her hand, his grip firm but gentle. And that's exactly why I want to do this with you, he said. Because I know we can raise children who will make this world better, who will carry forward everything we've worked so hard to build. Tears welled in Jasmine's eyes as she realized the depth of his commitment, not just to her, but to the idea of building something greater than themselves. Okay, she whispered, her voice trembling. Let's do it. Months later, the couple stood in the nursery they had prepared together. The walls were painted a soft, calming yellow, and shelves lined with books and toys filled the room with warmth and anticipation. Elliot wrapped his arms around Jasmine from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Can you believe this is happening? He murmured. Jasmine smiled, placing her hands over his. It feels surreal, but I'm ready. When their daughter Amara was born, the world seemed to shift. Holding her tiny form in her arms, Jasmine felt an overwhelming sense of purpose and hope. Amara was a perfect blend of them, Elliot's light eyes and Jasmine's deep complexion, a testament to the beauty of their union. She's going to change the world, Elliot whispered as he gazed at their daughter. No, Jasmine replied with a soft smile. We are, together. As Amara grew, so did the challenges. Questions and comments from strangers, some well-meaning, others not often, reminded Jasmine and Elliot of the world's lingering prejudices. But they faced every moment with grace and strength, teaching Amara to embrace her identity with pride. When Amara was 5, she asked Jasmine a question that stopped her in her tracks. Mommy, why do some people say I'm different? Jasmine knelt down, cupping her daughter's face in her hands. Because you are, baby. But being different is what makes you special. You have a light inside you that no one else has, and it's your job to let it shine, Amara nodded solemnly, her wide eyes filled with understanding far beyond her years. Like you and Daddy? Exactly like me and Daddy, Jasmine said, pulling her into a tight hug. As the years passed, Jasmine and Elliot's story became more than just their own. It became a legacy, a reminder that love, when rooted in respect and understanding, could conquer even the deepest divides. At Amara's high school graduation, Jasmine and Elliot sat side by side, their hands clasped tightly as they watched their daughter take the stage to deliver her valedictorian speech. I'm here today because of 2 people who taught me what it means to fight for what you believe in, Amara said, her voice steady and confident. My parents showed me that love isn't just about being there for each other. It's about standing together, even when the world tries to tear you apart. They taught me that our differences are our strength, and that the best way to change the world is to start by believing in yourself. As the crowd erupted into applause, Jasmine felt tears streaming down her face. Elliot squeezed her hand, his own eyes glistening. We did it, he whispered. Jasmine nodded, her heart full. We did. And as they watched their daughter stand tall, proud, and fearless, they knew that their love had created something far greater than they ever could have imagined, a legacy of hope, strength, and unbreakable unity. The applause for Amara's speech lingered in Jasmine's ears as they joined the other families outside for the post-graduation celebration. The air buzzed with excitement, parents congratulating their children, and laughter mingling with the faint sound of music playing in the background. Amara spotted them through the crowd and ran over, her cap slightly askew and her face glowing with pride. Mom! Dad! She called, throwing her arms around both of them. You were amazing, Jasmine said, hugging her tightly. I've never been more proud. Me neither, Elliot added, placing a kiss on Amara's forehead. You spoke like someone who's ready to take on the world. Amara pulled back, her eyes sparkling. Because of you too. Everything I said up there, It's because of what you've shown me every day. Jasmine's throat tightened. You're going to do incredible things, Amara. I just know it. That night, after the celebration wound down and the house was quiet, Jasmine and Elliot found themselves sitting on the couch with a glass of wine in hand. Amara was upstairs, surrounded by her friends who had come over for a sleepover, their laughter faintly audible from the living room. I can't believe she's graduating already, Elliot said, staring at the empty glass in his hand. Feels like just yesterday we were painting that nursery. Jasmine chuckled, leaning her head against his shoulder. Time moves fast, doesn't it? Too fast, he murmured. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the years they'd shared settling over them. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Every challenge, every tear, every moment of doubt. I've been thinking, Elliot said suddenly, breaking the silence. About what? Jasmine asked, tilting her head to look at him. About what's next for us, he said, his tone contemplative. Amara's starting college soon, and things are going to change. I don't want us to get so caught up in everything else that we forget about us. Jasmine smiled, reaching for his hand. We've never forgotten about us, Elliot. Not once. I know, he said, squeezing her hand. But I want to make sure it stays that way. Maybe we should take some time for ourselves, travel, explore, do something new. Like a second honeymoon? She teased. He grinned. Exactly. Except this time, we'll know that everything we've built is stronger than ever. Jasmine leaned in, her lips brushing against his. I like the sound of that. A few months later, they found themselves walking hand in hand along the beaches of Santorini, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was soothing, a reminder of the peace they had fought so hard to create in their lives. As they sat on a rock, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Elliot turned to Jasmine. Do you remember what you said to me the first time we met? Jasmine laughed. You mean when you barged into my dressing room? He winced. Yes. That. I believe you said, you think you can just barge in because you own this place? She shook her head, smiling. And here we are, all these years later. Who would have thought? Elliot took her hand, his expression serious now. I would have. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were someone who would change my life. Tears welled in Jasmine's eyes as she looked at him. You changed mine too, more than I ever thought possible. They sat in silence, the sound of the waves their only companion, until Elliot broke it with a soft whisper. Here's to everything we've built, he said, raising an imaginary glass. Jasmine smiled, raising hers in return. And to everything still to come. And as the sun disappeared below the horizon, they knew their story wasn't just about the past or the present, it was about the future they would continue to build together. One day at a time, here on my channel, we celebrate the power of love through stories that will touch your heart, inspire your soul, and remind you of its magic. If you believe in love, if you've ever been moved by its power, then join our community by hitting the like button and subscribing. Together, let's share the beauty of love with the world. Your support means everything, so don't forget to like and subscribe to stay connected and inspired. Love is better when we share it.